Hello, hello, and welcome to the Voices of Survivors with Kathryn Moody, where we're sharing the beautiful stories of survivors and how they are getting out and really stepping into their power and shining a light for others who may be still in the thick of it. So today I am joined by Ayesheia, and she's going to be on a call, so not on video, but she has a really beautiful story, and I've known her a very long time. I think I was still a teenager, and I know her boys were still really little, and now they're teenagers.
Babysitted my second son.
Yeah, he was so young, and now he's not.
Got a mustache now.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Upset by it too.
Goodness, not ready for that for my own.
Emotional damage, right?
Right. So, how about you go ahead and share a little bit? I know we were just kind of chatting about your current relationship that's just recently ended. So, you can share a little bit more about, how you got into that and like how you came to realizing that it was abusive and you needed to get out.
Okay. Well, it's a two-parter. Because my smart self got back with him a second time. But the first time was a one-night stand. And it turned into 2 weeks later, I met his mother. And then we went through pretty much a year and a half of the honeymoon phase, where I thought everything was fine. I didn't realize that he was cheating on me and that he was doing drugs behind my back. The hard drugs. Yeah. I knew about him smoking pot. I didn't care about that, but
right.
The hard drugs. And also, I also figured out really fast that he was an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And when the abuse first started happening, it was emotional and controlling. Like I had to have his clothes ready when he came home from work. I had to have a fresh pair of clothes waiting for him when he came home from work. And if I didn't, he got mad at me and yelled at me and told me, I was worthless, or, I couldn't do that right, or, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then there was not really physical after I caught him cheating on me, actually. I caught him cheating on me, and I don't know if I pushed it, and maybe that's why it turned physical. I have no idea, because I was not necessarily sure at how I handled him cheating on me. I should have picked him out, but I didn't. I made a mistake, and basically, you're going to your life, you're going to pay costs.
Yeah.
And I ended up pretty much dropping that anywhere we went. It didn't matter if it was public, grandparents, mom, sister, brother, it didn't matter where we were. If anything popped up emotionally that caused me to remember that he had cheated, I popped off at the mouth with bad names and was very straight and loud about it. So,
yeah.
And I wasn't enough. And then he ended up talking me into moving to India. And this is where he separated me from my network. He separated me from my family and friends.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this was happening. information I found out later. I learned about it, I researched it. But anyway, he got me in any camp, and I was basically epitome of everything that went wrong. It was all my fault. I did it. He farted crooked. It was my fault. I did that. I caused it. And with slowly started getting more physical. He would flick cigarettes at my eye, and he would use choke out games. He would choke me until I almost choked out and let me breathe in. Or he'd get me and knock out. It was fun for him, I guess. I don't know my dad. And he would grind his fist into my rib cage. That was the lowest part of what he did. He was still cheating. And of course, I was young, so I took it dramatically. And then it got to pretty much, and I was with him for 5 years the first time.
Yeah.
And it got close to the end. I can't really remember like every abusive incident. Like,
yeah,
I can only remember the highlights. You know what I mean? And
right.
like the last one was an extreme highlight. There were two last actually. He threatened. There was it's a school, and I don't know what it's called because I'm not familiar. But he called it his N-word beach bar, and it was a it was the long metal one that had the like pocket thing at the end, like
a crowbar.
Well, no, you could take lessons off of the tire with it, but it was really long.
Tire.
But it wasn't a crowbar, and it wasn't a tire iron.
Oh.
It was something else.
I don't know.
Maybe I know what a crowbar or a tire is. It wasn't that. I have no idea. It was like a socket, but it was like huge.
Okay.
Anyway, he threatened to beat me with that. And I got out of that one, and I don't remember how. But he didn't hurt that thing with the bar.
Yeah.
But there was another incident where, because I did break the path, it turned into a moment, and it saved my life actually. But he was out with friends, and Robbie was already with my parents, and they were still alive.
Yeah.
And he was the only child that had it. But anyway, we were by ourselves. So since my past, well, I had drunk and done drugs in my past, and he was doing it, and I did it too, and I wasn't a very good person back when I used to do methamphetamine and stuff like that. So
I don't think anybody is a person on that stuff. They just people so much.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those people that it's not a good thing for me to be on it. Anyway, I get extremely way more blunt than I already am, and I am more volatile.
Yeah.
And I got way more blunt than I should have, or at least that's what he would have told you. I should have.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I said the word. I basically gave, like, he wasn't the reaction that he get off of me.
Right.
Like, it was, I absolutely don't care. I'm having fun. Stop talking to me. Stop trying to ruin my fun. Leave me alone. Don't do whatever the hell you're gonna do, but let me have my fun type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Except it was a lot more rude and a lot more blunt
Yeah.
in front of people. And you can't do that. But you can't do that when you can't be completely truthful in front of everybody.
Oh, yeah. They have an image to it.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Anyway, so I was extremely loud and extremely blunt. And we ended up going home. And his friends ended up talking to him outside. They were about to leave. Well, I told him to come on in because I didn't want him to go in with his friends. I wanted him to spend time with me. Like, I was ready for him to spend time with me now. And I was all messed up. But anyway, he came in, but he was mad because I basically told him to do in front of his friends. And I called him in like the dog into the house. Well, we got into the house and got to about where the couch was in the living room that we had in the house that we were staying. Mm-hmm. And he ended up picking me up by the waistband of my feet and body slamming me down in between the couch and the coffee table.
Yeah.
And like trying to rip my clothes off of me, which kicked me into a PTSD moment from being raped before.
Right.
Luckily, I had used my brain enough to get my knees up, and I don't know how I did this, but I did. My pure instinct got my knees up in between us, and that way he could completely put his full face on.
Yeah.
And I was screaming and crying, and he was telling me to shut up. And he had his hand around my face, and I have to say face because like one of his hands basically could wrap where my nose and my mouth all chin.
Yeah.
And he wrapped his hand around my face and was pushing my nose and my mouth down. And I ended up getting bruises across my face because of how hard he was pressing on my face to try to get me to stop straight. So I was fighting for breath, and then he was choking me, and I was fighting for breath more. And then, for some reason, I saw out of the corner of my eye him grab for a Walmart plastic bag. And my brain immediately thought, oh crap, he's going to head over my head. But it was a lot more cuss words.
Yeah. And
I ended up clocking him in the face. And when I did, I apparently busted his lip open. I didn't know that until way later when he did the whole apology crap. But apparently I busted his lip open. And I kicked him in the balls. And I didn't know I had that cancer.
Yeah, I mean, once you get into that like PTSD blackout and flashbacks, it's just nothing comes back.
Yeah.
It all goes away.
I was basically fighting, as far as I was concerned, for my life. He was going to put that bag over my head.
Yeah.
So I ended up, like I said, I ended up busting across his mouth, and I ended up taking him in a dog. And he eventually let me up, but I don't know how long it was after I fought back that he let me up, because it's been so long now, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, he eventually let me up, of course, and we went on about our business and everything. And he was upset a few days later because I had to go to work, and of course I still had the bruises ringed around my neck and across my face. Yeah. I didn't know how to put makeup on to cover that crap up. So I went into work like that.
Yeah.
Well, I worked at Pizza Hut and I was a waitress. My face.
Everybody sees it. Yeah.
So I went in, and my boss, which was a female, saw it, and she was an alcoholic too. She drank the same bar my husband did, but she wasn't my husband at the time.
Right.
Anyway, and she helped me put makeup to cover up bruises, and she let me go ahead and work because she was going to send me home, but then she helped me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the boss left, and I thought, okay, she had either her shift was done or she had an emergency or whatever. She just, being a boss and going somewhere else for the day or the night shift.
Yeah.
Whatever. I ended up going home after my shift, and I found out that she had searched him out, and she had reamed him out in front of people.
Oh.
Yeah. I guess she was trying to help me. And,
yeah.
Anyway, he got mad, and he basically yelled and screamed like a child that he didn't understand why people loved me and not him. And then hit me a few times to put some punctuation marks on it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the narcissistic trait, and they do, like, they throw toddler tantrums.
Yeah.
Full-grown toddler tantrums, and it's the
But I didn't know that at the time. Like, I just thought, hey, it was I was the typical, it's just the alcohol. Should stop drinking if you just stop doing the drugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We make all the excuses for them.
All the rationale,
Yep.
It's the alcohol talking. It's the drugs doing it.
Yeah.
And I made those excuses. I did. Or I even got to a certain point at some point where I was all like, well, maybe I shouldn't have opened my mouth.
Yep. That trauma bonding and gaslighting ourselves is like totally, it's a total mind fuck.
I am pretty abrasive, maybe I shouldn't have opened my mouth.
Yeah. But no, it was him. All him.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that at the time, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, I ended up leaving him.
Yes.
And I went back home to my parents, and my dad was dying at the time.
Yeah.
And my stepdad. My real dad had already passed. Anyway, my stepdad was dying at the time. Hold on.
Yeah.
And then we ended up being separated for a long while after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do mean, I think we separated in 2007.
Okay.
That was when Dad passed away. We separated in 2007. And we didn't get back together until 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Anyway, we ended up getting back together. And I stupidly thought, I bought hook, line, and sinker, and he had changed.
Yep.
And, he actually, it was on the surface looked great. And he's never been one to not be able to hold down a job. Like, that's something he's always been able to do. Matter of fact, his mom pretty much licked his feet because he could hold down a job.
Yeah.
Because he could bring money home. Everybody was supposed to bow down. Pretty much. Anyway, so that wasn't his problem. But anyway, he stayed with me for a little while and everything was fine. And then I noticed the spiral. So I started to try to get out of it. And I started, this isn't going to work. You're going to get, you're going to get back like you were. You're drinking. You're not quitting. You're still an alcoholic. You may have quit the methamphetamine, but you're still drinking.
Yeah.
And this is not going to work out. He was all like, no, you got to give me a chance and all this other crap like they always do. And I did.
Yeah.
We're going to work it out. We're going to stop drinking. Eventually, everything will be okay. Bullshit. Well, I ended up getting pregnant. And I ended up having a miscarriage.
Yeah.
And I ended up staying with him, and then I ended up getting pregnant again. And this time it was thyroid that I got pregnant with. And I was basically told by the doctors that I would never get pregnant. But I ended up getting pregnant. And went pretty much, I was working like extremely hard. Like I was working like a lot of hours, like 100+ hours type situation. I was working a lot.
Yeah.
And but in between working, when I came home, I had to deal with the stressors of, walking on eggshells around him and trying to keep the kids, because by this time I had Justin. So I was trying to keep the kids safe and all this other shit. And I would step in front of him when he went after Robbie. And like there was one time he went to headbutt Robbie and I stepped in front of him and I was pregnant, big pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the headbutt so Robbie didn't take it. There was one time he ripped the gutter off the apartment, outside of the apartment, ripped it off because he thought Justice, who was autistic and his words were not completely perfect, thought he had called him a N-word when he didn't. I don't even remember what word he said, but it wasn't that one.
Yeah.
And he was going to beat my child with this drain pipe he had ripped off the apartment. And I ended up pulling him back out of the house and throwing the gutter that he had brought in out. And he had managed to cut my arm with it, but I kept on pushing him out of the house and I wouldn't let him come in.
Yeah.
And being pregnant and big pregnant, I probably should not, because whatever. But I had dealt with plenty of abuse before that. He was he wasn't choking me out because that would deprive oxygen of his child. So he wasn't choking me out anymore, but he was still hitting me every now and then and stuff like that. Just to keep me in line every time. I guess I have no idea. I would say something. It would be bad. Don't do that. I would demand that he actually be a grown up or an adult or the man of the house like he's supposed to be, instead of going to his friends and partying and drinking and hanging out over there. Little stuff that would set him off. But the next time, besides the gutter incident that he got really extremely violent, was the time that he shook me around.
Yeah.
And he shook me around, and it wasn't too long after that I lost Kyrie. He's not the complete reason why I lost her, but he is partly responsible.
Yeah.
I'm stressed out. My liver was stressed out, and it wasn't doing its job properly because I was completely and totally stressed out. I was holding a lot of anger and resentment towards him. So, of course, that, messed with my body, because you hold anger and resentment in your liver. So it wasn't helping. And I was a very angry, resentful person who was stressed out, trying to make sure, I kept him happy, and I walked on eggshells around him, and we did whatever he wanted, and almost all the time. And, I was trying to keep my son safe, and I was trying to, have a baby and all the good crap that, you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he shook me around one night because he got extremely mad, and he ended up making it to where she drowned in her own blood.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, of course. I thought I was going through Braxton Hicks contractions. So I just kind of threw off almost darn near the whole first 24 hours.
Yeah.
This was my third baby. I thought, what it's normal, back pain, all this stuff's normal. That'll be all right. It's just Braxton Hicks. I ain't going in if I'm not really in labor.
Yeah.
And it ended up not being Braxton Hicks. It ended up being actual labor. My body was trying to kick her body out because she was no longer living.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until I got to the doctor.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, you couldn't have known. Because,
yeah.
like you said, I mean, pregnancy has all sorts of weird feelings, and sometimes they're just completely normal, and you could be a hypochondriac and go like every little symptom to the doctor, but I mean, at the end of the day, there's likely not much they could have done.
Probably not.
So, but
But,
I'd like to ask, like, what was the final straw? Like, going through all of this and making the excuses and
the
coming
final
back.
straw, well, the second time I was a lot more wise to what was going on than the first, obviously.
Right.
But the second time, what I had at least a year where I messed up, like, because losing my daughter messed me up completely.
Yeah.
And I took it extremely hard. Like, normally with me and death, it's a little bit different. I'm accustomed to it. It happened. I look at it differently. But with my daughter, it affected me a lot, a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So anyway, and we ended up getting married. Yeah, that's how I handled that. I ended up marrying him. Because for whatever reason, I don't know, besides the fact I was determined to make this work, and he, pretty much helped take a baby for me, so he owed me. I guess that's what I thought. Anyway, I ended up marrying him like a dummy, and we ended up being together, and I ended up getting pregnant again. And the last straw is coming. It's when I had Phoenix. See, I was planning on leaving him after I had Kyrie.
Yeah.
But when I lost her, my brain went stupid, and I ended up doing the complete opposite. I ended up marrying him.
Yeah.
But
Grief does a lot of funny
after I
things.
had Phoenix, it was completely different. When I had Phoenix, she was about, I want to say about maybe 2 months.
Okay.
I was still in postpartum baby vacation from work there.
Yeah.
Anyway, he ended up coming home one night drunk, and my mom was here because she was helping me with the baby.
Uh-huh.
And he ended up coming home one night drunk, and my mom had Phoenix, and we were just all standing here, and apparently I said something again that caused a problem. And then he insisted that my mother would go home. Well, he was too drunk to drive, but he was going to try to take my mother home that night.
Oh my.
And I refused.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let him take her home because he was too drunk to drive. And he didn't like that. And then my mom looked at me and she goes, "Do you want me to go home?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "It doesn't matter what she wants. Your mom's going home, whether you like it or not." And I said, "No, she's not. She's helping me with the baby, and she's the only one that's helping me with the baby. So, no, she's not going home."
Yeah.
And anyway, we moved on a little bit past that. I mean, we thought that the argument was fine. It was over, everything was settled. And then he got mad all over again. And he ended up trying to come for me. And my mom had the baby in her arms, and she ended up handing the baby to me and stepped in it in front of me. And he grabbed her by her throat. And my mom has been in an abusive relationship. She explained to me fully what my real dad was like and all this other jazz. Yeah. So I already knew that she was in an abusive relationship too. And it clicked. Like, he grabbed her throat, and I was in shock. And I went and sat down, and I picked up my phone, and I called the police. I called 911, but I couldn't talk into the phone. So I was trying to keep it to where he didn't know I was on the phone, but the police could kind of hear things that were going on.
Yeah.
And my mom got away from him, and he started to throw the kitchen chair, and I screamed out, "Don't you throw that chair at my mom." And then my mom, I guess, thought that he was calmed enough that she started to come around to come find a seat, and he grabbed her by his throat again. And I had to hang up because he came over to me after he let my mother go. He came over to me and he spit on me. He was trying to spit on me, but he also spit on his daughter. And I said, "Don't spit on her. Spit on me all you want to. Don't spit on her." And he was like, "She's my blood. She's my flesh. I can do anything I want."
Yeah.
On and on. And I was like, "No." I was like, "You can't do anything you want."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Just like them boys back there, they're mine, and I'm going to raise them how I want to raise them. I'm going to raise them just like I was raised.
Yeah.
And they're going to be just like me." And I said, no, they're not." Oh, we got into a fight again because of that. And he ended up getting extremely mad. And I don't really know what happened. I think my mom calmed him down again.
Uh-huh.
And he ended up going to bed. Well, I ended up going to the back room where my son was, my eldest son. And because Justice slept back there with in Robbie's room.
Yeah.
And I ended up going back there, and Justice was back there, and Robbie was back there, and Robbie's friend was back there. And I had the baby with me, and my mom was with me, and even our dog, the household dog, which was actually his, but I took the dog with me anyway, because he used to hit the dog too.
Yeah.
So I took the dog with me back there too. And I called the police again. Well, we live in a really small town, and the surrounding towers are not in said town.
Right.
So they were getting pinged off of all the other towers and all the surrounding towns, but not the one that I was in.
So they couldn't have got to you. Yeah.
They couldn't have gotten to me. They had to know the address, and I couldn't tell them the address because at the time I was trying to make it seem like I wasn't on the phone.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up telling them the address and telling them exactly what was going on. I even told them not to, like, he's in bed right now. Don't burst your lights on. Don't make no sounds. No whoop whoops. Don't do any of that. Because if you do, when you come in, you're going to start it all over again, and you will have to fight him.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, like, no problem, da-da-da-da-da. Well, they eventually came, and they took my mother's statement, and they took my statement, and then they came in, and it was like 4 cops. They told us to go to the back.
Yeah.
In the back room, and we went back there, and they hauled him out. Well, he did end up fighting, and he ended up breaking the bed, fighting them.
Wow.
Well, they hauled him out, and they got him into the police car. And they came back in, and they were all like, okay, we need his wallet and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. So I'm handing the police officer his crap, but I'm trying to hand him his pants at the same time. And I mean, I was still, you're still mixed up and messed up.
Yep.
Because of all the programming. So
Yep.
I was still I was handing the police officer his pants too. And I was like, just let him put these on. just let him put these on. He's out in his boxers. Please let him put these pants on. And he goes, we will provide clothes for him. And I was like, I know, but please.
He's gonna get some clothes, all right.
And they were like, no, like, don't worry about him. All right, we got him. Don't worry about him. He's gonna be taken care of.
Yeah.
Like, stop worrying about him. Just give me the wallet. So that's what I did, and that's how that ended. We ended up going and getting a protective order and all this jazz. He only went away. He was sentenced for 3 years.
Yeah.
He was sentenced for 3 years, and they ended up taking off, like, the fighting of the officers. They ended up taking that off. The resistance of arrest, I think that's what they put in there. But they took that off. And they just put domestic violence by strangulation in front of a minor. And he got 3 years, but he only was there for a year. And then he got out.
Yeah. Way too often they get out way too early.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he had good behavior because, of course, he was a model citizen. He's been in jail so much that he knows what to do in there.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah. But that was my final straw. Is when he strangled my mom. It was like a light bulb clicked, you know.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's
There's
violent.
always that one last straw that just the light bulb finally comes on, and you're like, oh, I can't deal with this anymore. And that's like with my situation. It came to a point where I had realized so many lies that he told me, and then like connecting the dots of what was actually abusive and what was like actually going on in the relationship. And then I realized, like, okay, he's not going to change, and I'm never going to be able to trust my kids around him. Is that really the kind of life that I want to live? No, I can't do a whole lifetime of not being able to trust the kids around him. That's just not going to happen.
The first time I left because of Robbie. I didn't want Robbie to grow up and think that being abusive was the way it was supposed to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The second time I left him was because of Phoenix. I didn't want her to grow up and think that's how men were supposed to treat her.
Yeah.
But also because he strangled my mother, and my mother's been through enough, and she didn't deserve that. No.
She was just being a mom and protecting you, and
but it took my mom strangled for me to see, oh, this is not normal.
Yeah, definitely. So, in wrapping up, is there anything that you can think of that's really helped you along your healing journey, like in recognizing these abusive patterns and
research? Friends. I had work friends that were all like, Asha, this isn't normal. Having them talk to me about it continually, even though they knew I wasn't leaving him. They knew I should have left him, but they knew I wasn't going to leave him. But they continuously talked to me. They continuously let me vent. They continuously heard the same crap over and over again. They prayed with me a lot. At work. One of them actually took pictures, which I actually have the pictures of proof of the abuse. One of the pictures that she took is when he hit me with a belt across the head. The metal end of a belt sliced my ear open.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, so that didn't even, losing my daughter didn't do anything. Me getting my ear sliced open didn't do anything. Him strangling my mother did something.
Yeah.
It was like one of those things that I didn't care what happened to me, just don't touch anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, after so many years of abuse and growing up with that, like we don't see ourselves as worthy of anything else. So we're just like, okay, well, I'd rather you do that to me than somebody else, so I can take it, whatever.
Yeah. And that was exactly my lookout too. I mean, like, I was like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I've been through this before. My daughter's dead. What can you do to me now? Like,
Yep.
You have done everything that there is to me by this point. What else can you do? What else can you do?
Yeah, it's definitely, but yeah, having that support system of people who will actually just hold space for you and give you that information is super, super important, because I know I had some people who like tried to tell me with my relationship, they saw the red flags miles away, and I didn't really listen then, but like the people who actually stayed by me through the whole thing, those were my people. I had other people who like fell off and walked away, and I don't talk to those people anymore because they couldn't stick around and love me for where I was. But yeah, I'm super glad that you were able to get out and you are on your healing journey, and research really is everything. We've got
and unlearning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm still unlearning. I'm still unlearning things.
Mm-hmm.
That took a lot, and it still takes a lot for me to unlearn certain things. I still have major triggers, loud noises. Some days I can handle them. Some days I cannot.
Yeah.
I hear a loud trigger because I actually did go to a counselor, psychologist, not a counselor, a psychologist. I went to a psychologist, and she was like, you're diagnosed. You're not only bipolar, but you're also diagnosed with PTSD due to domestic violence. You do know this.
Yeah.
And I was like, PTSD is for soldiers. And she goes, not just for soldiers. And I didn't know that. That was a revelation.
Yeah.
I didn't realize why I was having those triggers. I didn't realize my loud noises would make me flinch, and then all of a sudden I couldn't handle noise for the rest of the day.
Yep. That is like really true. A lot of people think PTSD or CPTSD is just for like soldiers or people who have been in war or whatever. But no, it's any kind of trauma that sends you into a flashback. Like it can be anything from childhood to abusive relationships, whatever major traumatic event happened, it can trigger it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so having those, that's also a good point about getting in with a psychologist or a therapist, because healing is really, really important so that you don't continue the cycles and keep going back.
Especially if you have a good psychologist. And I did have, I stopped going to her, but I'm a weird person, and if I feel like I can handle my own stuff, I'll stop doing it until I can't handle it no more. But and that's part of my bipolar issues too. Like, I feel good right now. I can handle this. I don't need to go to somebody for help.
Yeah.
So I don't. Anyway,
and then you go manic and
but
it happens. Yeah.
Going to the psychologist really opened up my eyes, and I started doing research into narcissism.
Yeah.
Because she was the one that introduced me to that. I didn't know that I didn't know it had a name at all.
Yeah.
Until her. I didn't know. I mean, I knew I was bipolar. I already knew that because I had been diagnosed that before, so that wasn't new to me.
Right.
But I didn't know that I also had like social anxiety. I didn't know that I had PTSD due to domestic violence that had occurred. And it was just one of those things where like that opened my eyes to a lot more avenues, and then I started researching all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we're about time. So to wrap this up, I do have a resource document that I'll be dropping in the comments or linking to below. So check that out if you need resources for healing or getting out, and different organizations that help So you're not alone. Others have gone through this too. Others are still in the thick of it. And we're here to support you. And there is a way out because you are so, so worth it. So
Definitely.
Tune in next Thursday. And thank you so much, Asha, for sharing your story and your healing process. So we'll see you all later.